Welcome back to Insight on the Second Lebanon War. With us now is Danny Gillerman, former Israel's UN ambassador during the war in Lebanon. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here, Jacob.
Take us to New York on those days.
You sure you want to go to New York those days?
Yeah, I want to hear the story from you.
Well, the Lebanon War was a very bloody war. Certain aspects pretty similar to what we're experiencing today, except the bloodthirsty and very cruel enemy was Hezbollah rather than Hamas. The big difference was that Hezbollah, which is a horrible terror organization, was actually operating from within a sovereign state, Lebanon. To some extent, it has taken over much of that state, it has terrorized that state, but there was still a legitimate government in Lebanon.
There's a question mark on the word sovereign.
Right. But there was a legitimate government at the time, headed by Senora. And the Israeli Defense Forces went there and did what they had to do and carried out a very serious battle with a very substantial number of fatalities and including some civilian fatalities. But I think the turning point came when there was a sort of a stray missile or a stray bomb which went into a village called Kana. And that immediately was a turning point in the war. I remember being on Meet the Press with Tim Russett, just as the news of Kana came, and he grilled me about it. I had no talking points or no information from Israel, but it was
this is a Lebanese village where many civilian casualties
were killed by mistake by Israel. They spoke at first about 50 or 70 civilians. The final number was much lower. It was 20 or so. But the outcry was immediate. And as soon as I came out of Tim Russett, who actually gave me a great opportunity to practice my response to something I did not even know had happened, I was notified that the Security Council was meeting for an emergency session. And I rushed there, and I remember my deputy was already sitting in my seat thinking I may not make it, and he got up, handed me the talking points from Jerusalem, which I discarded because I thought they would just mix me up. And it was a very, very dramatic meeting. I did actually say to the members of the Security Council that they should not play into the hands of the terrorists, that while what happened was horrible, and it is something that Israel regretted very, very much, and while there may be grieving in Israel and maybe in other places around the world, there's probably celebration in Hezbollah, because this is exactly what they wanted. This is exactly what they were aiming for. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing a very similar phenomena today in Lebanon.
Well, it all resulted in Resolution 1701.
Right.
What is 1701? Is it implemented today?
Resolution 1701 was negotiated basically by four parties. It was negotiated by the French on behalf of the Lebanese, and it was negotiated by the Americans in very close cooperation with us. The French were very close to Lebanon, as they had very, very real interests in Lebanon, and they also had a very close relationship with Senora. And the one thing that was following throughout the negotiations in 1701 was the French warning everybody that if we don't reach a resolution very quickly to that crisis, Senora's government will fall. On the other hand, the Americans were trying to achieve some things which we all felt were basic, like the disarming of Hezbollah, like the removal of Syrian forces from Lebanon, and others. And
so you mentioned disarming of Hezbollah, which brings us to Gaza today, because 1701 also includes 1559, which calls for disarming of Hezbollah and other factions. Is this going to happen in Gaza? It never happened in Lebanon.
Well, it did not happen in Lebanon. Although it was demanded, it was part of the agreement, the dismantling of Hezbollah, the removal of Syrian forces. It did not happen. On the other hand, the Israelis on our northern border have enjoyed 8 years of quiet. And Hezbollah has gone into its caves and tunnels, and Nasrallah has never been seen in public again.
And now when Israel is talking about this armament in Gaza, is this realistic?
I'm not sure how realistic it is, but I think it is something we should seriously aim for, and it is definitely something we should set as a target. Because I think we do have an unprecedented opportunity here, because what we did not have in Lebanon is the support of very serious elements in the Arab world. We have the support of Egypt, that is also trying to regain its stature as mother of the Arab world, as Anwar Sadat said it was in '79. We have the Saudis and the Gulf states, and I think we have parts of the rest of the world who really understand that no country would be willing to take what Israel has taken in being shelled by rockets and penetrated by tunnels by these terrorists. So we have an opportunity, I think, to reach a settlement, to reach a totally new reality in the region through aligning with the Egyptians, with the Saudis, with the Gulf states, getting the support of the United States and Europe and many other countries around the world to change the reality on the ground in Gaza, which should, at the end of the day, mean the demilitarization of Gaza, demilitarization of Hamas, with a very, very substantial reconstruction of Gaza. So the stick could be the demilitarization,
well,
the carrot should be the...
wishful thinking at this stage, but it's a nice idea to think about.
Well, you know, we live in a neighborhood where wishful thinking is important. I think Chaim Weizmann, the first president of Israel, said, in Israel, the impossible we do at once, miracles take a little bit longer. So it may be a miracle, but I think it should be set as a target and as an aim. If we settle for less, maybe we'll have to, but we shouldn't aim for less.
Ambassador Gilerman, I thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yossi Millman is a senior writer and analyst specializing in security and intelligence matter. Hello, Yossi. Thank you for joining us. The argument within Israel regarding the Lebanon War, the Second Lebanon War, is still continuing. The argument about Gaza is just beginning. Let's start with Lebanon.
I don't think there is any argument whatsoever nowadays, 8 years after the war. During the war and immediately after its ending, a lot of Israeli commentators, senior military officers or ex-officers, claimed that it was a flawed war, that Israel lost assets, that the results of the war would be disastrous. Very few people in real time argue the opposite. They said that strategically speaking, the war in Lebanon brought great results for Israel and achievements as far as national security is concerned. However, on the tactical level, there were flaws and mistakes. And this is the problem if you look now at Gaza. Israelis have, first, a short memory. Secondly, they turn every minor incident into a major strategic catastrophe. And therefore, because of so many little mistakes, incidents, unclear situations, you don't see the entire picture.
Well, but you had the Vinograd Commission that clearly showed big problems and flaws in the way the military conducted itself. Also, the fact that the Israeli military was somehow unprepared for this war. This is not something that concerns you?
Well, it did concern, but the Vinograd Commission had a very narrow mandate. Its mandate was to investigate what happened to the military from the decision-making process, equipment-wise, and in that sense there were a lot of problems. But if you want to refine the results of that war, I would say that strategically it was a great achievement. Why? First of all and above all, because 8 years later, we still have peace in the Galilee. Secondly, Hassan Nasrallah is still in the bunker because he fears Israel would assassinate him. Thirdly, deterrence was achieved, and thus we have peace. All the rest is just details. There might be a third Hezbollah war or third Lebanese war, but not in the immediate future, because Hezbollah is bogged down, is suffering, is having a lot of casualties in the Syrian civil war, which is spilling over now to Lebanon itself, and Hezbollah is in deep trouble. So I don't think Hezbollah would open a third front. They have the Lebanese front, the Syrian front, and now another front with Israel. I don't think so.
Yossi Melman, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thousands of rockets were fired on Israeli cities both during the Lebanon War and just recently from Gaza as we speak. As a matter of fact, it's happening. With us now is Brigadier General Meir Elran. You advised the commission that investigated the Lebanon War, and your background includes military intelligence and home front security. Now you are with the INSS. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What was, in your eyes, the most important finding of the Vinograd Commission that investigated the Lebanon War?
Well, the Vinograd Commission, headed by Judge Eliyahu Vinograd, examined lots of issues, a variety of issues concerning the conduct of the Israeli military in Lebanon, July 2006. If you ask me what would be, to my understanding, the most important issue that they tackled, it would be, I think, the discourse between the political echelon and the military high echelon, so as to make sure that the military understands exactly what were at the time the intentions or the goals of the campaign as far as the Israelis was concerned. Yeah.
Which brings us immediately to what's happening now in Gaza, and I see you have a little smile coming,
Yeah,
because
correct.
it's again some unclear mandate that the military got from the political echelon.
Well, let's be honest first and realize that we do not really know enough about the discourse between the two echelons, as it seems to be on the surface. There has been a vast improvement since 2006, and at least the three persons who are leading the campaign right now, this is the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and the Chief of Staff, seem to have a clear understanding of what the three of them are up to and how to achieve what they would like to achieve.
But sometimes you hear quotes from the military saying you must decide now.
Correct, but you know, I have learned to be a little bit more easy with those rumors and to find out later on what's happening. I mean, this is always something that we want to know now, what exactly happens, and we do not know exactly what is the type or the channels of communication between the different echelons. I would presume that in both in the political arena and in the military side, there are all kind of different opinions, different views. That's why I specifically suggest to look at the way that the three persons are conducting this operation. And it seems to me again, and it's perhaps too early to judge, and perhaps there will be a study of that later on, but right now it seems to me that lessons have been learned and implemented, and I think that at least they're trying very hard to make sure that they understand each other.
To not find themselves in front of another commission.
Exactly.
When you look at the civilian population, then and now, major difference?
Yes, there is a major difference as far as the civilian side of the picture. I think that the two important things happened in terms of improvement of our capacity to protect ourselves or to defend ourselves vis-a-vis the external threat, mostly of the rockets. One is, of course, the Iron Dome, which makes a huge, significant difference. And we have to realize and understand that whereas in the 2006 we had, if I remember correctly, 44 civilian casualties, we are having now, we are counting 3, 2 of them from mortar and only 1 from rockets, which is a significant decrease in the numbers.
But isn't there something deceptive, the feeling at least, of Iron Dome? It's not a life insurance.
You're right, you're correct. It's not a hermetic kind of a system, and it will be challenged in a different way if it is faced with a different threat, which we know that exists in the north, in Hezbollah. If and when we have another round in which the Hezbollah will operate its arsenal against us in terms of the more precise rockets, it will be a different kind of a challenge for the Iron Dome. It's correct, and we have to understand, we as civilians and as a system as a whole, we have to understand that the threat will be much more meaningful. But I believe that until this scenario actually materializes, we will be ready for them as well.
Mayor Elran, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yaakov.
And this has been our insight here on I-24 News. We'll see you again soon.